Hi, my name is Natalie Plump, and my topic for the argumentative research paper was why the use of euthanasia is unethical. The use of euthanasia has been a controversial topic for many years. The action of denying one the hope of recovery or sustained life is incompatible with the roles and responsibilities of the medical team. While some might agree with this allowance of physician-assisted suicide, there are many ethical debates, as well as state laws, that decline this option. Life is irreplaceable and should be allowed to take its natural course. Those of the medical team should give their patients the best chance at survival and prolonged life, not end it. The debate over physician-assisted suicide is not one that can be easily resolved with the result of satisfaction with both sides of the argument. In 1985, a well-known scientist and author, Stephen Hawking, contracted a severe case of pneumonia. While already suffering from a previous diagnosis of motor neuron disease, he was placed in an induced coma to alleviate his pain. Under the grim circumstances and a slim chance of recovery, the doctors at the hospital there in Switzerland offered to Hawkins' wife the option of taking him off of life support. Not wanting to give up hope, Jane decided it would be in their best interests to transfer Hawkins to their homeland, England. There he would proceed to undergo vigorous treatment, eventually recovering, but at the price of losing his voice. Although he lost the ability to speak, he maintained his quality of life and went on to finish writing his best-selling book, A Brief History in Time. Hawkins has been hailed as one of the most brilliant minds of theoretical physics and cosmology. This incredible story goes to prove that the choice to end life prematurely could have great repercussions. The use of euthanasia is unethical because it corrupts the hope of restoration, limits research for cures for the terminally ill, and places unnecessary pressure on vulnerable patients. In 1964, the Declaration of Helsinki stated, "It is the duty of physicians who participate in medical research to protect the health, life, dignity, and integrity of research subjects." The Hippocratic Oath even declares, "I will not do harm. I will not give a lethal drug to anyone if I am asked." It is a physician's duty to sustain and give patients the best possible chance at survival, not to end their life. In the administration of euthanasia, the concept of hope is corrupted, thus attacking the physician-patient relationship. When care comes to involve killing, it introduces an incertitude into the very definition of the doctor's obligation. Euthanasia undermines medical research by turning the focus from finding a cure for the condition to killing the patient diagnosed with the condition. Funds are then diverted to the research of euthanasia at the expenditure of further investigation of treatments. Consequently, this will cause a greater use of euthanasia because medical research will have well understood physician-assisted suicide, but not the cure. Innocent lives will be taken when all along this funding could go toward the answers needed to treat the terminally ill patients, thus crushing the hope of recovery and overall survival. Physician-assisted suicide is progressively moving from those who are terminally ill to the chronically ill. The standard is declining from being accepted for the physically afflicted to those who suffer from psychological distress. Society can place a subtle yet indisputable pressure on those who are deemed less than perfect. For example, the elderly, the impoverished, people with disabilities. These people who feel it necessary to give up fighting for their lives to relieve both themselves and the world of this burden. In 1992, a story of a young girl, Tracy, unfolds. Even at the very beginning of her life, she fought for every breath. She suffered severe brain damage and was later diagnosed with cerebral palsy and scoliosis. Tracy and her mother went to the doctor to receive a consultation for a possible surgery to alleviate some of the pain she was having in her hip as a direct result from her pre-existing conditions. After determining the extent of the surgery without the promise of a complete recovery, the father of the young girl had had enough. The surgery had already been scheduled, but one day before, Tracy's father tragically ended her life. After many trials, it was ruled that he was charged with murder and sentenced to a 10-year minimum of prison. Unfortunately, this is not the only case like this. There are many other similar happenings that have occurred throughout the years of medical history. These horrific incidents could all be avoided if euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide were made illegal. One of the most prevalent counter-arguments for the use of euthanasia is that regardless of coming naturally or being induced, death is inevitable. Death is an unavoidable occurrence that will eventually come to us all one day, and the idea of physician-assisted suicide should be accepted. Weikart said, "Death for the sickly was not only inevitable, but also beneficial to society." Although this is a valid point and death is our intended fate, nevertheless, life is precious and irreplaceable. Those of the medical team should explore all options and give their patients the best chance of survival, not end their life. It is against the nature of doctors to induce death. Their sole purpose is to save lives, not end them. Moreover, doctors are not gods, and should not have a say in whether the patient should live or die. Doctors should aspire to improve the patient's quality of life, but even in their best efforts, death is not always unavoidable. Life is unrecoverable, and death should always be a naturally occurring event. Yet another frequent counterargument against the use of euthanasia is the statement that every person is designated the right to make his or her own decision concerning their end-of-life care. According to the ethical principles of autonomy, others have no right to interfere with these personal decisions, as long as harm is not caused to those in the community or those involved with the patient's care. Controversially, Gilham states, there can be no such thing as a right to assisted suicide, because there can be no legal or moral order which tolerates the killing of an innocent human life, even if the agent of death is self-administered. Creating a new right to assisted suicide will endanger society and send a false signal that a less than perfect life is not worth living. By merely existing, every human being lives his or her own life with dignity, which includes living correctly according to moral and ethical principles. People discuss their autonomy and their rights as if it were all about them. Their decision not only affects them, but the family and the surrounding community. It affects society altogether. This is a concerning matter that lies above personal choice. In conclusion, the administration of euthanasia and the act of physician-assisted suicide should be illegal. When there are alternate options and improving developments for new treatment, no one should be burdened with the decision of whether or not they should cease living. The medical team is there to offer the best possible care and the expectation of recovery, not end lives and crush all hope. When the focus changes to killing the patient with a terminal illness rather than curing the condition, the entire process of medical research and discovery is threatened. Legislation which allows the use of euthanasia should be disputed defiantly because it counteracts genuine compassionate care. Rather than protecting a patient's autonomy, it attenuates rather than conserves patients' autonomy.